Hey guys, Nick here. Long time no see, but I thought I'd work on a few builds while I've been off, and this is something that was really interesting to me with a new console we just got in the game from the Obena. So if anyone doesn't know the Obena, it's from the Infinity Lockbox, and this is its console, the Antimatter Interweave. Basically, this console, the reason why I was interested in this, when you go down to zero, it's 630 all damage resistance rating. So, yeah, in layman's terms, the lower you are, the more resistance rating you have. So I was like, very good passive console. And then the gears started turning in my head of a complete passive tank by. So I've been playing a lot of World of Warcraft and others, so yeah, we have equips and on uses in that game. So my brain is still in WoW terms, but for Stowe, yeah, when I say passive, I mean not a universal console like our strong clicky, our DPRMs, our adaptive emergencies, our proto-matter field projectors. I'm trying to think the ones from the most recent events. You know, our clicky consoles that are like, oh, okay, here is a taunt for 20 targets for 20 seconds. That's going to keep us alive, and here's 50% bonus or damage resistance rating when I really need it. This is just I'm hitting my spacebar the entire time, and that's all I've got. I want everything from the passive. I want everything building, you know, everything's from my traits, my starship traits, my reputation, and my personal space traits, and my specialization. That's all I've got. That's all we're just running through that the entire time. You can see on my trays here, my spam bar is 10 and 5, and my other trays are very blank. I hit our threatening stance, I run prototype Jevonite for a bit more health, and the rest is, my fleets, my hanger pets, and my battery. That's really it on my bars. So the rest of the time, it's just hit that space bar and, let it work. So, guys, I'm not going to go over every little thing because I think most people have probably seen more than one of my tank builds. Our stock standard bowl beams, we have 5 on. We have our dark matter quantum torpedo from Discovery Legends Reputation to pair with our local customs fire controls for the 2-piece. We have our Baul linked Sentry anti-proton beam array from the Lobby store to pair with the Baul linked Sentry coordination matrix from the Lobby store for the 2-piece. And last but not least, we have the Herald omnidirectional from event a few months ago. So if you didn't do that event, sadly you won't have it. And our Discovery Legends 3-piece with paired with our competitive rep engines. So guys, this is basically a stock standard combos on most of my tank builds now. Bowls spread around even more than most weapons, or pretty much all weapons that don't have refraction. I think there's a Tetron weapon that has it, and that's about it. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Do correct me if I'm wrong, everybody. I man enough to admit I don't know everything in this game. I have a fair bit of knowledge, but I don't know everything, and people know, might know this or might know that. It's good we need to share the knowledge together. So, next up, our devices. It's pretty stock standard. Our deuterium surplus. If you don't know that, it comes from the defense contract mission down in the it's the bottom part of the beta quadrant. It's down like here. Don't know. I can't remember the exact name, but you do a mission in the one of the arcs that have been taken away. It's in the available tab. If you haven't done it, do that. Then you get the defense contract mission. You just look it up on the wiki. There's a guide to show you how to do it. We're running advanced battery hull patch. So because I was a bit worried about my survivability when I first started, I was using these plus 20% hit points, 6,000 hit points, and damage control. So increasing my passive hull regeneration. Temporal Negotiator for more cooldown reduction on my bridge officer abilities, and the Kobayashi Maruta launch at the start just to get a bit of buffs as we go in. But now, sort of, guys, I'm gonna say this is a concept. This is a concept of a build. It's not a finalized 100% best. This is the build. You would run if you wanted to run a build like this. But this is a concept that was working for me so far. But in the time I might update, might move a console here and there. We might get something in the game I'll add to it. But this is an idea that I've been wanting to try for the last, let's say, week. And today on stream over on Twitch, we threw it together and did a few hives. and it worked out rather well, surprisingly. So, as I mentioned before, we have Lorca's custom fire controls. We have our hull image refractor. So this is technically a clicky console, but as you can see on my trays, the clicky is not on the build. It is completely for the passives. It is for the when your incoming heals and you're above and you're at 100%, that will take you above into temporary HP. So you might be at like 105% HP, 110. So it's just help you get a bit more sustainability. Next up, we have House Martok defensive configuration from, it's one of the missions, I think it's Brush Fire maybe, from memory, I might be wrong now. But we come to our episodes in the New Frontiers arc. My memory's not too bad at these days. Brushfire, House Martok. You run that, and you can then say if you wanted the Omni for the 2-piece, but I'm sticking with my AP weapon, so I am only just going to run the console for the stats that it provides me. Increased hit points, increased shield capacity, increased shield power and engine power, and some flight turn rate, so just increased to my defensiveness. My tankiness, I would say the stow word. Our shield absorptive frequency generator from our Valdor, I would say the legendary Valdor or our tier 3 Valdor from the Dilithium store these days, if you don't own it. Very cheap console, very effective console, completely passive. You just chuck it on the build, and every time your shields are below 90%, when you get the proc on your weapon, you get shield healing, and it is very, very good for any AoE energy weapon build you've got. As you can see, on the tooltip it says energy weapon, so it doesn't work with torpedoes or science, just your energy weapons. Next up, we have the Bioneural Infusion Circuits from the Lobby store, and this, guys, is on pretty much every single one of my builds, plus hull points, plus control, plus crit severity. So more hull, my crits are harder, and I have more control for the gravity well that I don't have on this build. As mentioned before, the Bile-linked Sentry Coordination for plus anti-proton damage, plus hull capacity, and removes an incoming control effect. So if you get like tractor beamed, they'll remove some, but in like Hive, you're getting tractor beamed. And I'm running Polarized. I should be running Polarized Hull, which is actually not on my build as we see here. I'll catch it as we're doing the recording, everybody. But it's here for the 2-piece mainly, which allows me to run, the chain. They'll chain more, the refractions do more damage, so helping our damage over time spreading around. In targets that are 15 kilometers away will get hit by the refraction, and because they do more damage, that means more threat generated to me. And it also allows other anti-proton weapons to gain Bowel refraction, so my Herald weapon gains Bowel refraction. Next up, we have the build onto the builder. I don't have the right word here. It's the base of this build. What sparked the idea. There we go. Our antimatter interweave from the Obena, just released from the Infinity Lockbox. Basically, as I said before, the lower I am, the more resistance rating this is giving me. So as I'm dropping, that's kind of there's another idea I have to work on a lower HP tank. When I'm lower, I might do more damage, and then I'll field my Valdor. But yeah, this is a concept to come, and I'm hoping we can get if people are interested in this, we can get this bit of discussion in my Discord about this if anybody else is interested. Next up, because at this point of the build, I was going, what do I run? What do I run? What's left? I threw on hull repairing weapon signature amplifiers from the research lab, so increases my threat generation by 157.5% while active, so while I have threatening stance on, and I have it ×2, so 315% increased threat generation, increased control for the gravity well that this build doesn't have, and when receiving damage, 2.5% chance to restore 1,304.4 hull ×2. So passive healing, passive threat generation, it's all very useful things for a tank. And last but not least, we have 4 times colony consoles that are anti-proton kinetic damage. So if you don't know what these are from the Fleet Colony world. When you hit a firing mode, it has a chance to, there's a 25% chance to restore 5% of your max hull every 2 seconds for 10 seconds, and 1000 shield regeneration every 2 seconds for 10. And because I have 4 of these, they proc every time I hit a firing mode. That's why I have Fire at Will, Torpedo Spread, and Rapid Fire on this build. It was just to get a bit more healing going through if I needed it, which, to be honest, I didn't really need it as much, but it's nice to have to be over-tanked than not. And last but not least, we have our Elite Type 7 Shuttlecraft from the Awani. These are pretty self-explanatory. The reason they're on this build is they provide, I'd say, the most useful thing that a Hangar Pet can do is the attack pattern beta 3 and the close-in sensor pass. It's just a huge amount of debuff to multiple targets. So that means things are dying quickly, meaning you have to take less damage. If things are dying, means you don't have to sit there and tank it. Next up, my stock standard skills tree on my main that I do not change, so if, I'll just leave it here for a second. 27 points in tech, 10 in engineering, 9 in science. Some people say don't run a point in like control amp, and they might run it in, EPS or like weapon power down here. Like, pretty standard. But your science, you'll want control points. You'll want all on the captain, and then you kind of fill in hull, cap, impulse, expertise, and then your weapon power for most builds. And my specializations are Miracle Worker, Temporal. Miracle Worker because it's just the tank specialization of choice. You get 50 max hull regeneration per minute standard stock, and it's all passive, and then it all works on crit heals, more healing, more damage resistance rating, more incoming healing. It just works on making you tankier. And Temporal for our threat generation. Entropic Rider works on our bowl weapons very well. So it's this, they call this, when this come out, a dot tank. The bowl refraction with Entropic Rider, and if you're running like Chemosite Lace weaponry, that all procs very well, and you get a lot of damage from the Entropic Rider at the end of the run. So you look and go, yeah, that's why I'm holding threat, even though I'm 15 kilometers away, because the dots and the refraction are hitting them before anybody else can do it, and it builds up your threat per second as you're going along. Next up, our traits. So I wouldn't say this is where the magic happens, but this is where like the concept was building more. It's like this has to be all things that I don't need to worry about. Not I have to do this, then this, then this to make it work well. It's just running the entire time. Doesn't matter what it's doing. So a good day to die. So go down fighting can be used at any time. So go down fighting, if you don't know, is a tactical only ability. It's plus 20 all damage resistance rating and 50% bonus all damage increases with hull loss. So that can have a 100% uptime if you have enough cooldown reduction from several different sources. The main one that this build is running, Intelligent Agent Attaché on weapon crit strikes, restores 2% of captain ability recharge. That's the only one I have right now. There are some traits now that we have that reduce captain ability recharges that can get you well into being a global very quickly, but this generally should be enough to get me pretty good uptime on my go down fighting and my attack pattern alpha. Give Your All, it says, so Give Your All is the engineering R&D at level 15. You get this trait. Every time you hit an engineering ability, you have a 20% dodge chance of incoming damage for 3 seconds. So it's, as you can see on this build, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 engineering abilities. So as I'm rotating through, I'm getting 20% dodge chance quite often. Next up, we have Fleet Coordinator. So it's 2% bonus all damage times 5 to make 10% bonus damage when you're in a party of 5. Next up, we have Repair Crews. While in combat, gain 1 stack of Repair Crews every 5 seconds, maximum of 5 stacks, so it's 25 all damage resistance rating and 25% hull repair rate. So this is just once you go in, it's going to build up and give you some hull repair rate and damage resistance rating to hopefully just keep you up. I felt like on my last run where I was tweaking this a little bit, that I was a little bit overthinking, so maybe I might be able to drop this trait for some more damage to get more threat generation. But this is where the concept comes in, just to fiddle with it over time. Fragment of AI Tech plus 27.4 energy weapon damage based on control. So it's basically it's giving me more damage to my beams, and 50 starship control expertise. Now, normally I say this is working is for the gravity well, but because this build I needed the engineering abilities to work with my traits, I didn't have room to take gravity well, so it's mostly for the damage it provides to my weapons. Next up, we have a whole lot of X's. So guys, if you didn't know what this is, it's when you get down to 25%, it's basically an oh shit heal that you don't have to control. Every 2 minutes, if you drop below 25% hull, boom, you'll get a boost up to 75%, and you get a shield heal while you're going. So it's, oh no, I'm dying, what do I do? I've got nothing. Boom, this shoots you straight back up to 75%. Most of the time, like, if I'm running random content with this trait, yeah, okay, it saves me because I'm not paying attention. In a hive, you're probably going to die if it's too early in the run, because you've taken that much damage. It doesn't matter. You don't have an extra boost with a build like this, but I had Turn the Tide. So I hit that, I got dropped, went up, and then I hit Turn the Tide, and it saved me. But if you're doing any other content, you're not going to need it. Like, ISC doesn't hurt as much, any of the patrols don't hurt as much, any of the other TFOs don't hurt as much. The only other TFO that might be able to kill you in a decent tank is Battle of Corfez, or like some Leviathan and some other things. Like, if you purposely, or you've made a mistake and you're standing, I say standing, if you're in the path of something that's going to hit you very hard, like the Polaron Barrage in Battle of Corfez. Next up, we have the Boimler effect. Most people probably know this, but this is for our Bridge Officer cooldown reduction. Every time we hit a Bridge Officer, we have 17.5% chance to recover all our Bridge Officers to their shared recharge, basically meaning to their global. So if Firewheel is their global is 20, this will bring you instantly to 20, if it procs. Next up, we have Terran targeting systems. This is basically here for the 15 crit severity, and that's it. I don't worry about the second part. The minus 10% speed is really not that impactful. And this is the last... this trait here is probably one that's on the chopping block, because it's basically it's a Hive onslaught trait. Warp Core Breaches do a lot of damage in Hive because there's a lot of enemies, and I generally don't want to get hit by the Warp Core Breaches just to reduce that damage. If you're doing any other content, you could probably swap it off. Beam Training, Context for Kings, Feel the Weight of Our Presence, Fleet Tactician. Like, there's plenty of other traits that you could swap into this slot. But for Hive, I highly recommend everybody run Fireball Escape because it makes you immune to Warp Core Breaches. Next up, we have our Starship traits. Emergency Weapon Cycle from the Arbiter. We have minus 50 weapon power cost when you hit emergency powder weapons, and 20% fire cycling haste, so it's just buffing up our energy weapons to make us do a little bit more damage. More damage, more threat generation. Next up, we have Entwined Tactical Matrices from the Gagarin in the C-Store. When you're hitting Fire at Will, it gives... When hitting Torp Spread, we get Fire at Will. When hitting Fire at Will, we get Torp Spread. So you cycle through Fire at Will and Torp Spread to give you that high uptime on Fire at Will, which is the main firing mode of this build. Next up, we have Honored Dead from either, if you got it from the Starship trait pack way back in the day, or from the Sarcophagus, which is a lockbox ship, if I'm not mistaken. So this is another passive tank trait, as I'm misspeaking. After receiving 10,000 cumulative damage, gain a stack of Honored Dead, which is 10 all damage resistance rating and 1% health regen, max 20 stacks, so 200 all damage resistance rating and 20% health regeneration. When at 20 stacks, subsequent activations instead grant 10,000 temporary hit points for 40 seconds. So you're getting all damage resistance rating and health regen to 20 stacks, and then after that you're getting temporary HP. That alongside hull image refractors, you're getting a lot of temporary HP as you're going along. This is just one way of making sure you don't get like a one shot, all that. So you might be getting hit, but this is building as you're going along. And I really like traits like this, as after a little bit you just have to worry about like your first few seconds of combat. That's why I have an ability called reverse shield polarity, because that helps you in that first few moments of combat. But once you get these built up, makes you very tanky. Next up, we have this is one of the things I'm going to bring in a term called best in slots. This is a history will remember. This is one of the traits that will almost never leave a tank build, because it is just a stat that each thing on this is a stat you want. All damage resistant rate. All damage. Sorry, I didn't say all damage resistant. All damage. Good. Hull regen. Very good. Max hull. Very good. Threat regeneration. Extremely good. They're just stats that you want for a tank. And it almost is like your first... If you're going to, say, buy a tank or make a tank, this is your first buy. This is... I need this to make it an effective tank. And it really does help. Next up, this is the one, I would say this is the one starship trait that's on the chopping block for me in the concept. It does good. It gives me more damage to my beams, more defense rating, and increases my threat generation. So it's all very helpful stats for a tank. But maybe we swap it out for something in time. Next up, we have our polarized lattice optimized titanium armor, or the normal acronym that I used. I call it plot armor. So it's another passive tank trait. When taking more than 20% of your max health in 5 seconds, gain polarized lattice optimized titanium armor. Immune to transport warheads. Heal for 24,000 hull over the duration, and 250 all damage resistance rating, and removes hazard debuffs and dots each second for 15 seconds. So you're getting cleansed, you're getting a big boost to your all damage resistance rating, and you're getting a hull heal. So it's something you don't have to worry about as a tank. It's just if you're getting beaten up, you're going to be more tanky because you're getting beaten up with this trait. And next up, we have the reconstructive conversion wave, and this is thanks to my good friend Michi, who recommended this one, and it did rather well. Did a good amount of damage and a good amount of healing, just a very nice balancing act with this build. And it also fed into my hull image refractors. When hitting hull heals and command abilities to target 12,780 anti-proto damage up to 10 foes within 5 kilometers, and per foe affected, heal for 1% of max hull capacity every 2 seconds for 10 seconds to you and your pets. Healing is doubled if 10 foes affected. So in Hive, this could be 20% hull regeneration every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. So it's a good amount of healing, and because I'm rotating through so many heals, this is consistently going. Just healing, and a good amount of damage. So it's a nice little trait that Michi recommended, and it worked rather well. Next up, we have our space reputation. Advanced targeting systems, 20% crit severity, just boosting our damage. Precision, 5% crit hit chance. More we crit, the more damage we do. Boosting our damage. Tyler's duality, 6.4% crit chance based on our hull capacity, max at 200 hull. So most tanks, your aim is to be above 200,000 hull, because a lot of scalings in tank items, consoles, gear, traits, all scale at maximum at 200,000. So your goal is once all your stacks have built up, your threatening stance, your hull image refractors, not your hull image, your history will remember, and a few other things, you'll be well above 200,000. I think when I looked mid-hive, I was about 280,000 hull, so well above what I needed to be at max. But so it's more crit, more damage, more threat. Advanced hull reinforcement. This is 12.5% bonus all damage resistance rating. So this is one of the only sources on this build of bonus all damage resistance rating. So for those who don't know, all damage resistance rating has a cap, so you're going to get to so much. Bonus means it's category 2 instead of category 1, meaning it'll make you a bit more, and it's passive, so it's just increased passive tankiness. And when critically hit, gain 688.5 shield regeneration for 1 second for 15 seconds, and 125% hull regeneration for 15 seconds can only trigger every 30 seconds. So this is just like a just passive. I need a lot of healing because I've just been hit really hard. Next up, we have our stations. So not a standard bridge officer loadout, but this is a 100% spam bar and let it run build. So we have our big items, our Suppression Barrage 3, our Reverse Shield Polarity, our Fire at Will, our Torp Spread to maintain our Fire at Will uptime, our emergency powered 2 weapons to proc our trait emergency weapon cycle, and then from here on in, everything else is like a luxury or a we might change this up. Hazard emitters to proc reconstructive wave from the Voven trait, polarized hull for increased all damage resistance rating and immune to tractor beam. So in a lot of Borg content, they like to tractor beam the tank and you get stuck, so I'm immune to tractor beams. Rapid fire is literally here just to proc my colony consoles. Emergency powder engines is so I can move around easier. Engineering team is to proc the trait. Reconstructive conversion wave. Did I just say that? Reconstructive conversion wave. Auxiliary power to structural integrity field to proc reconstructive conversion wave. I'm sorry, I'm having a lot of troubles today, everybody. And last but not least, I think is another ability I might drop is Overloaded Integrity Field 3. Not 100% sure if this really gave me a lot, but yeah, I wanted engineering abilities, I wanted hull heals, I wanted more healing, I wanted just to proc the trait. So yeah, this is still up in the air, but it's a concept of an idea I wanted to share with everybody and see what we could do with it. And last but not least, everybody, my roster of duty officers. First up, we have a crit chance and crit severity energy weapon officer. Crit chance, crit severity. Next up, we have 2447. This is only here for the power levels to max, so attack, set power levels to max. Miracle Workers, obviously I don't have any Miracle Worker abilities, so it's not getting procced. Agent Neural, while under the effects of attack pattern beta, each weapon fired restores 0.2% of your max hull, so I have attack pattern beta, so every time I'm firing my weapons, 0.2% of my hull back from that. The emergency con hologram, though every time I hit emergency powder engines, if my evasive maneuvers is on cooldown, it will reset the cooldown. So you can see here, evasive maneuvers is running. It'll run out any second now. There we go, it's got a 45-second cooldown. I hit emergency powder engines, and boom, it's back off cooldown. So it gives you much higher uptime on your evasive maneuvers and allowing you to move around way, a lot quicker, much more frequently. And last but not least, Mamola. So this is just a fabrication engineer to increase my reverse shield polarity uptime. So I actually don't know the global cooldown for reverse shield polarity, but this is here as a massive shield heal for the incoming damage. So at the start of most combat, because this is a passive tank, building up stacks, I'm just going to spam bar this. So it's first as I go in, it's activating, and it's giving me almost 20, it's giving me 24 seconds, I'm about to say almost 25, it's giving me 24 seconds of big shield healing. So it's almost, I would say this is the biggest one, press defensive in this build, because this allows everything else to get rolling, and then once everything else is rolling, you have, hopefully you have enough to keep you rolling for the rest of the time, and then after that it'll just go off again, give you some safe time, and if you really need it, because it's a command ship, turn the tide as you're basically you're on the oh shit button. But you know, once you're rolling in most content other than Hive Onslaught, you won't need to hit a damn thing. Anyway, guys, that is the build. I'm sorry for the misspeaks and the errors, but I'm going to leave them in because I think it's just natural. I am human. But hey, guys, if you have any comments on this build, leave them down below. If you want to have a longer discussion about this build, join my Discord, message in there. I check it every single day. You know, it's all, if a message goes off, I'm almost reading it straight away. But otherwise, I'm going to say thank you for watching. If you've gotten all the way through here with my terrible explanation with everything, and I'll say good night, good day, wherever you are in the world. See you all next time, and goodbye.